What's happening, gentlemen? Thanks for coming over to the DFS 5-pack. We did the showdown already. We did kind of like a quarterback video just to kind of jump it off last week, but this is week one, NFL main slate. Time to get that money like your old favorite player, Johnny Manziel. No, probably not.
No, I will say it's fun, man, that we're making a football video. This is the first time we've ever made a football, basketball, and baseball video on the same day.
It's a good point, and this hopefully will never happen again because I think we would like all sports to kind of get back to normal, sooner than later. So we'll just call it what it is today. It's interesting to have that crossover to three sports roll, and I'm sure y'all, just as players, are very, very busy with DFS right now.
Have to be, man, like you talked about earlier. There's just a lot of content to consume, a lot of time spent doing this stuff. So, yeah, it is what it is. We'll take it, though. It's better than what it was a couple months ago.
For sure, which was absolutely nothing, guys. So one of the things that if you're looking to play but not spend too much time on it, for example, with NBA being high and mighty right now in the playoffs, baseball rolling and football coming, if you play a little bit more casually some days and just don't have the time to compete with the Sharks on some of the bigger sites, give a look-see at Overlay Fantasy Sports. The name of the website is overlaydfs.com. I got a link to their Twitter profile below. Go give them a follow. We ran through the NFL stuff last week, but we'll do a final thoughts video either Friday or Saturday to tell you where we're looking at. Got a jackpot for the $22 progressive contest up over $10,000 if you can go 12-0. Otherwise, find a way in that contest to go just in the top 10%, and you'll get $180 off your $22 buy-in and still have a chance to try to win that jackpot, guys. So a lot to talk about. Top-notch customer service, but let's roll over and do our DK picks.
Yeah, let's get it, man. The thing you got to love about Overlay is those top prizes are actually attainable. I mean, on DK, unless you're really multi-entering those big contests, is really a losing proposition.
More often than not, that's a tough one, guys. So week one, DK, NFL, a lot to talk about until Friday. So most of you guys will catch this in time. I will keep the 20% off sale on the NFL package up on the website. It's normally $100. Right now it's $80. This gets you the full season of NFL. What we cover for you will be all the regular season, all the playoffs. We will do write-ups and videos for the main slate in prime time, and then members-only videos for the showdowns on Monday and Thursday. We do public videos for the showdowns, but then we do lineup construction, GPP, and cash construction on the members-only videos. That's all for you guys up there at only $80 right now. Come join the team. Otherwise, lifetime, monthly, and annual customers get every sport that's active, which, as you just mentioned, is all three of them right now. Lifetime is no future payments ever. Monthly is, recurring monthly. Annual is right there for you, one full calendar year.
Can't beat it, man. Let's get it.
All right, so let's start with the quarterback position. Talk about there's a variety of guys in play this week. We're going to go through our pay down option right now. Not our favorite overall quarterback or anything like that, but if you're looking to save money at the position, we disagree on a lot of things, but one thing that we agreed on this week is if we were looking to go on the cheap at the quarterback position, we were both looking at Mitch Trubisky for only $5,400 going up against the Detroit Lions. There's a lot to like right here. And one of the kind of themes about most of the guys that we like this week is we like guys who, one, have experience with their wide receivers. Trubisky and the Bears are bringing back the vast majority of the same skill position players they've had. So this isn't a new thing for them. They have some continuity. They played together all last year. He knows Robinson. He knows Miller. Tree Cohen, for example. He knows these guys. Not like some other teams where it's a bunch of new pieces. There was no preseason this year. And while we agree Trubisky is preferable in GPPs, if you love, CMC and Thomas, you're going to have to pay down at quarterback. Also, the Lions traded away their best cornerback, so they have not been a great D in pretty much my entire life. There's no reason to think they're better this year.
And listen, there's a reason he's 5,400. He's far from safe. But he's also a guy that had 20-plus 6 times last year. 19-plus 7 times. He had a 4-game stretch where he had 20 in a row all 4 times. I mean, listen, at this price point, the upside is obviously real here. Other thing that we love, you mentioned it in the second to last bullet point, he didn't just get the job because it's just his job anymore. He had to beat out Foles. I love that. Came into camp feeling good and proved himself. So I think Chicago's going a little bit under the radar, and I think Trubisky could have a real big week one as they look to get the season rolling.
I also expect their defense to be better than it was last year when it took a real step back. And while that may not be great for the overall point total, what it does for me is gets the ball back in his hands more often. Not these long, sustained drives, eating up the clock. Give me more time with him on the field. And I like a guy right now that if all things break down with no warm-up, no preseason or anything like that, he can throw in 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 10 points with his legs if he hits pay dirt with him.
Yeah, for sure. He's definitely a guy that's athletic and that can scramble, and that running's a part of his game, and that really helps for DFS purposes.
Absolutely. He's not Lamar Jackson, but nobody outside of Lamar Jackson is. So, he's up there right now for me. Not quite a Russell Wilson territory at the legs, but close, as Wilson runs a little less than he did when he was younger. So that's a big thing for me to look at week one, is guys that can create with their legs as well, because there's going to be some broken plays. I mean, we've never seen a season like this with no preseason. I don't expect offenses that are, purely timing in newer guys acclimated to be full throttle week one. That would be kind of, it would be impressive if they were, but that's just a hard thing for human beings to do.
Yeah, and I'm sure that some of them will be, but it's hard to know exactly who.
Yeah. All right, man. Let's keep moving on down the list. Let's talk about the running back position a little bit. And let's talk about Antonio Gibson of the Washington football team. And I think this is more of a discussion that we wanted to have for you guys on camera, as opposed to just say a hard recommend you got to get here. So, when we last touched on this one yesterday, Gibson was definitely trending as one of the chalkier players on the slate. Now, it came out yesterday that J.D. McKissick is currently listed as the number one running back on their depth chart. And then they have Peyton Barber and I'm drawing a blank. Who's the fourth running back?
Bryce Love.
Bryce Love. So there's a lot of guys on the roster right here. So, you mentioned this yesterday when we were doing the members only video. In his time in college, he's very explosive. But this is not a kid that's going to come in week one. And I would be shocked if he had more than 10 carries in the backfield. I don't know what your thoughts on that are.
Yeah, shocked.
Okay. But if you operate under the theory, which is a decent theory, that a less than stellar Washington team is struggling offensively week one and the Eagles get up to a bigger lead, this is a guy who could be a PPR monster. He's very explosive, very capable of breaking a big play. And if Washington, which let's just face it, they're not very good, and the Eagles are a solid football team, is down, 1 or 2 scores, and they have to get a little pass happy, this is a guy that could create a lot of things with, that little PPR mold that he has.
Definitely. He's very boomer bust, and it's definitely a discussion point that's worth talking about. So I guess the biggest reasons I have for why I can get on board with fading him is that there's so much unknown coming into this year. You're right. The assumption is probably that Washington is not good and Philly's a lot better. But, I mean, we've seen a lot of weird stuff. We've seen a lot of weird stuff in the NBA bubble. We always see weird stuff year to year on an NFL, this year in the NFL, if you will. It's like a soap opera. And quite frankly, for how much unknown there is, specifically in this running back situation, he's getting a lot of love. I don't think it's a hard fade. I think it's something to think about, though. I'm interested to see what his ownership actually is really going to be as we get closer to lock.
I put this as the last point because I think it's big right now. This is an evolving play this week. And if we get reports throughout the week that Gibson is not the starter and that they're going to run with McKissick, or hell, even somebody like Peyton Barber, for example, then it's going to change the way that people are evaluating. As it stands on Wednesday, I think he's already taking a small dip in his ownership, guessing just based on the fact McKissick was named the number one guy. But I don't take that with much yet. I want to check back on this one every single day this week and find out what Washington's thinking. It's possible they come out with some sort of announcement. It's also very likely they don't tell us anything about what they plan on doing. So you're going to have to make some of your best guesses. The nice part about him is what we mentioned, that he can be the kind of guy that can almost get value on one play because of his ability to hit the home run. But if this game is slightly competitive and Washington's trying to eat the clock, there's no guarantee this guy sees more than 5 or 6 touches this week. So that was where the idea of fading him in GPPs, if the ownership's higher than we anticipate right now even, could make a lot of sense for people.
Yeah, it's definitely a tricky one because especially week one with a rookie, there's so much more unknown here than there usually is in the NFL.
Knowing that he's a home run hitter, I care more about his ownership percentage this week than I do on most football players, because this is a guy who I think nothing would surprise us with him. Let's say Philly gets up pretty big and he has 9 catches for 90 yards and hits pay dirt, and then also runs for 30 yards, and he's sitting there with 27 DK points at 60% ownership. Good luck winning without that. I also wouldn't be flabbergasted if he ends the week with 3 points.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he catches 2 balls for 8 yards, and he gets 2 carries for 8 yards and that's it. Like, I'm with you. There's definitely so much more volatility here than there usually is.
Yeah, and again, week 1, COVID, no preseason. Like you mentioned, the idea that this is going to be a little bit of a soap opera in the NFL this year. This is a pick that I've been mulling over the last couple of days, and I'm going to continue to monitor very, very closely throughout the next couple of days. And I would encourage, and hopefully you guys are out there kind of doing the same, because he's the kind of guy that could, potentially make or break this week. Or he gets 6 catches for 60 yards, runs for 10 yards, and is just fine to win with or without.
That's the most likely scenario, but you have to really play with each the ceiling and the floor, I guess.
All right, so this one, it's an early game, so any news on Washington will at least come out early. It would make you feel better if something like Peyton Barber was inactive or something like that, and that he was going to be the first guy out there. But I would watch this one all week long.
I'm really, really intrigued to see what the NFL is like with no fans. Like, fans are such an integral part of the NFL, I feel like, even more so than in any other sport. I'm really, really intrigued.
All right, next up, I think one of our top plays of the week, and a guy that I expect to be a lot of people's upper tier play of the week, is going to be DK Metcalf of the Seattle Seahawks. He's definitely trending as being one of the more popular wide receivers this week. So especially in cash games, you're going to want to get him into your lineup. He had an excellent rookie season. I mean, over 1,100 yards, 8 touchdowns. He was good. He was real good. And I think we know that year 2 for wide receivers is usually when they make the biggest leap. For me, he's just way too inexpensive at only $5,800 for a guy that I think could easily be $7K in this situation. Again, projected to be quite popular. This game right here is also one I know you have circled for offense. According to the Vegas odds, it's tied for the highest projected point total on the slate. This is a guy who's a big-time red zone target, and I expect him to catch double-digit touchdowns this year, assuming that the year plays out and he's healthy for at least the vast majority of it. I know you're a big fan. I'm a fan. You love this game. I like this game. This is definitely a guy I would absolutely get into my cash lineup, and there's no reason that you need to fade him in GPPs.
No, for sure. I like this game a lot. It's kind of like in the NBA in the regard that, like, even if guys are popular, you can differentiate yourself with 1 or 2 different plays. So I happen to like the other side of this game. So maybe I use a couple pieces there and with Metcalf. But either way, I love him here. It's hard not to like him. He crushed in this spot last year, kind of his breakout game. Gets a ton of red zone looks. Expect him to be better year 2. I mean, he's a matchup nightmare for any DB. This is a game that should have points. I got a lot of interest here.
This is a bold statement coming from me right now, and I was just thinking about this. So I did a couple of year-long fantasy drafts the other night in my keeper league with my buddies from high school. I held on to Hopkins, and I don't like Hopkins as much in Arizona as I did in for the Texans, but I didn't have a lot of options but to hold on to him. I think there's a good chance that come next season, DK Metcalf will be one of my 3 keepers and not DeAndre Hopkins. So that's my bold statement for the year.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with that. Times change in the NFL. I don't want to say that, like, so I could see you maybe keeping both. Like, yep. I could see going into next year Metcalf being, like, higher ranked than Hopkins, though, to your point.
For sure. I have Metcalf, Julio Jones, and Hopkins. And if you asked me on how I expect him to be ranked next year, I think it's Julio, Metcalf, Hopkins. I think it's going to be real close. And I think those are 3 of the the better wide receivers moving into next season. Only you can get Metcalf at a discount right now.
Yeah, agreed. I'm with that for sure. I mean, I have him in my dynasty league. We talk about that a lot. And I got so many offers for him like this whole offseason. I just would not move him because I'm with you. I think like going into next year, he's going to be like a top 5, 10 wideout going into the drafts and stuff.
Definitely. He's a red zone beast. And with that, the size that he has, I expect him to be a perennial, double digit, touchdown catch type of fella.
Same.
All right, so let's take a look at somebody else from the wide receiver role, and that's going to be of the Las Vegas Raiders. Some of these teams are hard to say right now. Washington football team, Las Vegas Raiders. It still feels a little bit weird, but we're looking at Hunter Renfrow for only $4,500 against the Carolina Panthers. Most of you guys know by now Tyrell Williams is out for the year, and no preseason once again. This is what I like about Renfrow. He has a year experience with Derek Carr, whereas some of the young guys, some of the rookies, Nelson Aguilar, they don't have any game experience with Carr. So I expect Carr to be looking at Renfrow and Waller. Renfro's very cheap at the wide receiver position. There's a lot of tight ends in play. Second-year slot guy. I also like slot receivers more than a lot of the outside wide receivers this week as well. And Hunter Renfrow fits right in that mold.
He is the ultimate like cog in the machine type for NFL, for NFL purposes this week. Everything we like about guys in terms of having been around, been with the quarterback. He's a guy that you can rely on. He's not a deep threat. He's going to catch intermediate balls. There's just a ton to like here at 4,500. He's also going to get a lot of love. And he doesn't have the upside of Gibson, but you feel so much safer that he's going to get you like 10 to 15, right?
I feel pretty safe that he'll have like 6 catches for 75 yards or something along those lines, right?
Yeah, exactly. And if he hits Pater, then it's the more, icing on the cake.
This is another game. It's projected to be very close. It's projected to be competitive with a solid point total for some offense right here. And while normally I prefer to attack Carolina with the running backs, I think you guys know who that would be from the Las Vegas Raiders. It doesn't mean that a slot wide receiver can't hit value off of a very small salary. You can't just run the football. You're going to have to throw it a little bit. And Carr, it's a new cast of characters for the most part, but this is one of the guys he's going to feel comfortable with.
Amen.
All right, last up. So breaking out of the mold a little bit of a lot of the things that we liked as far as who we were going to be targeting week 1, I still like Hayden Hurst. And I don't love the fact that this is his first game with Matt Ryan, but Matt Ryan's a wily veteran. And Hurst is really, really inexpensive for what he offers. Yeah, he's not Kittle, he's not prime Gronk, but he's a solid tight end, right? He's already been set up and announced that he's going to be an every down tight end. And he's going up against Seattle this week, who was ranked third to last as far as points given up to the tight end position last year. And another thing to like, Seattle doesn't have a pass rush. So there's no reason he's going to have to stay in and chip and block or anything like that. He should be running routes. He's
also good. The only reason that Baltimore got rid of him is because they've got other options, a guy that's better than him in Mark Andrews. And, there's so many mouths to feed, so many checks you can write, et cetera, et cetera. We saw what Austin Hooper did for them for the past couple of years. I think Hayden Hurst has similar stat lines, if not better. I mean, we'll see what his rapport is with Matt Ryan, but he's good. This is a great spot for him. I love this game for offense. There's clearly other guys in play that we don't need to tell you about. But Hurst is one of those value guys at a low price point that I'm sure he'll get love, but he gives you exposure to this game without breaking the bank, and I like everything about him here.
Yeah, it's always so easy to pay down at tight end because the cheaper tight ends are at least in the game all the time, whereas sometimes, it's hard to put faith into a wide receiver or running back who maybe isn't on the field nearly as much. And I love the fact that, sometimes you get in love with the tight end, but then you find out they're doing way too much blocking. You don't have to block against Seattle. You can just one-on-one against them. They have very little pass rush. They lost Clowney, so the odds of that getting better this year are slim. Hayden Hurst should run a lot of routes. And it doesn't take much to hit value off of 4,300. And again, this is not some fill-in tight end. This is a guy that deserves to be a starter in the National Football League. You mentioned that, it's hard to get above Mark Andrews. Guy still had 400 yards catching last year as a backup tight end, right? I mean, he was still part of the game plan.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, listen, it's no knock on him that Mark Andrews is the guy there. Mark Andrews is also very good.
Yeah, exactly. So any backup tight end that gets more yards than some, first-string tight ends, that's a guy who can play.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's what we're looking at for week 1, guys. Go ahead and click the thumbs up button if you don't mind. If you want the full-length video breaking down every player, we'd love to have you come join the team. Whether you do or you don't, best of luck in week 1, and let's go win some of that money.
Thanks, guys. Let's get it.